That was an interesting start. All right. Welcome to the pod at My Village.
Where we're going to have fun talking all things My Village Ministries, family preservation, and the church's involvement in this important work.
And it's Morgan and Phil. I'm back again. And we don't know that much about podcasting, but we do know a little bit about family preservation.
That's right. Morgan, it's good for me to have a go at this with you and not Melody.
I'm a little
Melody
nervous.
is really like she really weighs the podcast down. So it's good to have someone bringing a better and fresh alternative to it. Morgan, but summer's rapidly approaching.
Uh-huh.
And as a mom of 4 kids, what are you most looking forward to with the summer? This is not one of your questions. This is just our initial banter. Yeah, just our initial banter. Mm-hmm. What are you most looking forward to with the summer? And what's the thing that you're most dreading?
Oh, gosh.
As a mom of 4?
Well, I really do I just enjoy all things summer. We make one of those like bucket list poster boards with all the things the kids want to do. And we mostly check off all of them.
And your kids have a huge say in what those things are.
Yeah. So we decide the things together. And it's not like go to Disney World. It's like go fishing. And
what have you had that? Have you had that conversation with your kids yet?
Not yet. Not for this summer.
Yeah. What has been one of the worst ideas from the past that your kids presented that you had to poo-poo? You really had to shut it down. Not that it was unrealistic, but it was just
I didn't want to do it.
Really bad. Well, it's probably that more than anything.
I don't know. I mean, here's the thing. I want to love camping, and I have very fond memories of camping growing up. But we have like a 2-year-old, and I don't love the idea of camping with a 2-year-old.
Yep. So
we were supposed to go camping with actually Hannah, who works here, her family, and my brother and sister-in-law. We were going to do that last summer. And a mini crisis came up in the form of a dog that was maybe going to need to be put down. It was quite dramatic. And so we pivoted to camping in our backyard. And
your backyard?
My backyard.
Yeah, it's a big backyard.
And it was the best of both worlds because I camped and slept in my own bed. And I was like, we should do this.
Like, wait, did you act as if you were going to sleep in a tent?
No, like the kids slept in the tent.
Oh, nice.
And then
so there was no
Joel
acting
slept outside with the kids, and I slept in my bed. And Moses, our baby, slept in the crib. Which
was great. How would Mo do, though, at age 2 on a camping trip at this point? What do you think? You think he would handle it all right? He took like a pack and play and shoved him in there? I
don't know. That's what I'm like, I just don't want to try. Yeah. But I I love camping. I have very fond memories of camping. I want to be a camping family, but I just want Moses to be like 5.
Yeah. Our first go at camping with kids, we only had 2 at the time, Julia and Decker. And now it's become an annual thing with our neighbors, Shepherd community. It's actually like a fun event we look forward to every single year. But our first year, we took Julia. Now, our first time was just, we just had Julia and Aaron was pregnant. Anyways, Julia was like not even 2, maybe just turned 2. And she ended up sleeping on my belly for the whole night, which meant...
You didn't sleep.
I didn't sleep.
Exactly.
We planned on trying to stay 2 nights. Yeah. But after that night, we went back. We went back that day. We rode it out through the day, but then come dinner, we were headed home. Yeah. So you it's one of those things where like you're going to, it's like most trips, vacations with the kids. You do it to have this great shared experience with the kids.
And they have
friends. Fond memories of it.
Totally. I love all the camping food. I love sitting by a campfire. Like I love the experience of it, but
the mental preparation for it in itself is quite burdensome.
It's a lot of work.
It's a mountain to climb, just that in itself. But now that we have, our youngest is, at some point you'll get there, but you have a 2-year-old. Our youngest is 6, and we don't really have to dread it too much. What is the game changer for us, though, too, is we do have a pop-up camper.
Oh, yeah, no.
It's like 10x better than a tent. So.
100%. We'll get there.
Anyway, summer. So you're looking forward to the list.
I am looking forward to the list.
That would be fun.
Yeah, it's enjoyable. I was having a conversation actually with, there's a couple girls from my church that come over every other week for a discipleship relationship, and they were at my house this morning, and I was already preemptively processing with them the feeling of working and having kids that are off school in the summer, and how I just feel like I'm not doing either well. Like, I'm not a good employee and I'm not a good mom. Like, I'm just doing both kind of subpar.
How does that help your confidence and your self-worth?
It's really, really helpful.
Yeah. Hey, when you're weak, you're strong. You get a chance to rely upon Jesus more.
That's right.
That's all it is.
But I think I'm like...
What about on Mondays and Wednesdays, though?
Oh, it's
this
great.
summer, when you have the MBM summer camp,
so
do you feel
great.
like you can be a good employee those days?
I'm like at an
like
80%.
82%?
Yeah. Like, I'm mostly
I feel like that's
good.
what I am. Yeah.
But, you know, like, then you hear a child screaming in the background.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, do I, like, help in that situation, or do I ignore it?
And then when your kids do have needs during that time, really you're, like, operating as, like, 13% of the parent you want to be.
Yeah,
You're just
exactly.
Like,
I'm like giving you half of my attention.
Yeah. That's good for them.
And it's good for me. It humbles me to be like, you know what? I'm not that important as an employee. And in a really good way. Like, I'm really thankful to be in this job and do the work that I do, but also, like, not to have such an elevated view of myself.
Well, hopefully it's maybe brings some level of comfort knowing that that's every single one of us on staff.
I know. We're all in the same boat.
Outside of Dana, I think.
Yeah.
And Ben.
No, but Dana brought her grandson
that's
a couple
true.
of times.
Does.
So
yeah, that's true. That's true. Well, Ben's like...
And Peyton.
Yeah. And our interns this summer.
Great.
Did you meet him? You met him, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Excited about him. Anyways, we should probably jump into our questions.
Wow. Okay.
Do you want to go first?
I'll go first because I feel like I spoke the most about summers and kids. All right. Here is the more chaotic question.
Wow.
What's something you believed for way too long that now feels embarrassingly dumb?
Ooh, that's good. That the earth was round. I'm just kidding. I'm kidding.
What do you want from me with a response with that?
I'm just kidding. I now know it's flat.
Okay.
So
okay.
I feel pretty good about myself now. No, what did I... Man, there's nothing that specifically comes to mind, but I do remember having moments before becoming a parent. It's your classic of like, I would never do that as a parent, 100%. Or they have it. They don't have it.
Okay. Follow-up question: what's one thing that you said you would never do as a parent that you do today?
Well, I mean, now that because of the route of parenting that we took, where we didn't, and we have welcoming kids that are. I used to always think that you just don't put up with kids like
bad
nonsense,
behaviors.
in the ways that it can be appeared as if it's very permissive.
Totally.
But now that I'm parenting, I'm like, how I parent sometimes, I think many people would think it's permissive, some of the behavior, but we'll get into that when we come to the trauma portion of podcasting.
Check back in a few months.
We'll check back in. Which I'm sure there are times where I am permissive as a parent. Probably like 94% of the time, yeah. But those 6% that I'm not, I'm really good at being a parent. Yeah, it's probably parenting. There's gonna come. That's a good question. There's gonna come something that hits me later that I think of. But anyways, my first question for you: you are a woman of many talents. You're a good walker. You're good at making different types of bowls, like food bowls, like different types of.
You meant like crafting a bowl.
No, if Morgan, whenever she's talking about what she's making for dinner that night, it's always some sort of bowl. So you're good at making bowls.
It's just a classic.
You're good at walking. You're really good at knitting /
It's
crocheting.
crocheting, Phil. Get it right.
So crocheting. I bet you're good at knitting though. You could pick it up.
I haven't done it for a long time.
You could pick it up.
Okay.
It's like riding a bike, I'm sure. So in light of that, what's one hobby that you have not taken on that you would like to take on?
Oh, right. That's a good question.
Like pickleball, just throwing some examples. Have you picked up pickleball yet? Everyone
I've dabbled in pickleball, but it's like I play like 2 times in the summer, and that's
Do you play
about
with
all
Joel?
we have played before. I think
Is
he
he
gets
competitive?
annoyed with
Oh,
me
yeah.
because
'Cause he's too
I'm not
competitive?
at his level. Yeah.
You know
He's
what?
pretty competitive.
Is he? Who's more competitive?
My husband is far more competitive than me.
Really? What I learned about you today as I visited your church's office
Okay.
is that any game that you play, you end up dominating, even though you're not competitive.
That's not true.
Like any card game, board game, anything.
it's
You're
like a niche kind of game. Like,
Okay.
yeah, I wouldn't say like a strategic board game, but like the games where it's like you kind of have to know people,
Okay. Yeah.
people's responses. I think I'm pretty perceptive with that kind of stuff.
Okay. Your sister-in-law with anger and hatred in her heart communicated this unique skill about you.
I'm
so-
glad that you had a very
You have to
positive interaction.
You have to talk to her about it. Anyways,
Great.
what is the hobby? Sorry, what's the hobby that you would pick?
Oh, the first one that came to my mind is one that I actually have historically said I don't know if I ever want to pick up, but I think it's more that I just don't have the time or the patience to learn it, and it's the sourdough train.
Yeah.
I've never made bread, and I'm curious about it, but every time I hear people talk about it, I'm like, I don't got time for that.
Yeah.
They're like feeding these
Yeah, it does seem like a little bit of
starters
work. Yep.
and
That's a good one, though. I'd like to pick that. At some point in my life, I do envision myself doing that as well.
I mean, I would like to partake in in what is created with that
Yeah,
hobby.
no.
Like, I love a good sourdough
There's
bread.
nothing better than a good loaf of sourdough bread, seriously.
Seriously. So if anybody out there wants to drop by some sourdough for the office, we would take it.
Yep. Yep. I once tried to tackle kombucha. Is that how you say
Wow.
it right now? I did for a while. And then like whatever it's called. Ben, what's it called? Yeah.
Oh.
I knew you would know.
You would know.
It went bad. It lasted for like 2 months, and it was really fun to do. It was actually quite fun to do.
Huh.
More fun than I would have guessed.
Uh-huh.
And it was not hard to take care of. And maybe that's why it went so bad. It's because I thought it was easy to take care of, and then it went bad. Anyways.
Yeah.
But then after it died or whatever went bad, I just I'm done. It was a good 2-month
I
run.
understand.
So, but I'll try that with sourdough. All right, my first.
Okay.
No, that
No,
yeah.
that was yours.
Yeah, that was
it's my
first.
turn. All right, here's my more serious question.
Sorry.
What's something you've changed your mind about in the last few years, and what led to that shift? This is
You guys smell that.
similar.
Yeah, I smelled that, didn't you?
Yeah.
What's something that shifted in my mind?
Yeah,
Ask
like
that
you've
one more
just,
time.
what's something that you've changed your mind about over the last number of years, and what made you do that?
Christmas songs.
Okay.
I used to hate them.
Oh.
Yeah, I used to hate them every time they came around. And not like I think it was more so that because there's too many cheesy ones out there, and they would get played on the radio or whatever. You go to a party, and I just would hate those. Like, I'm trying to think of an example, like who ran over Rudolph with a car.
You're butchering
What's the
this.
car? What's the song?
Grandma.
Grandma ran. Yeah, like stuff like that, or Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer. Who likes singing those?
Yeah.
I'm coming around to liking most Christmas songs that aren't in that genre.
Are you talking about like spiritual Christmas songs,
Well,
or even the dumb
those
ones?
those cheesy worldly ones tainted my view of the Christian ones.
Sure.
Now I'm coming around to enjoying the Christian ones, and even though Christian ones there's some out there that are kind of cheesy.
Of course.
But now I'm starting to like them and appreciate them. So I used
What's
to
your favorite? Like, what was the album that you listened to?
probably.
this past
I mean,
Christmas?
Pentatonics puts
yeah.
together like some decent
They do.
ones that are that my kids enjoy listening to. So those are some of the first ones we turn on once, like the day after Thanksgiving. We start to set up the tree. Those will come on. So I really used to be like diabolically opposed to all things Christmas music. And I'm still against people playing it before Christmas or before Thanksgiving.
Yeah. I
That's a
kinda
little
feel
bit
that way,
blasphemous.
too.
So
Next up is getting you to change your mind on emojis.
for those of you who don't know, I have never sent an emoji in my life, nor will I ever. Or a GIF or GIF. GIF. I also have never sent.
Even to your wife?
No. I've actually never sent. You know how you can make like different faces out of like punctuations?
Yeah.
I
I do that pretty often.
Yeah, I've never done that either. I refuse to.
Okay.
Anyway,
Feels like a weird
it's
hill
a pride
to die
thing.
on.
Yeah, it's a pride thing at this point. And Yeah, I'm 45, so it's not changing at this point. So stick with it. So if you're out there in the ministry receiving texts from me and you wish I would be more friendly or affectionate in my text, by the way.
Don't take it personally.
Yeah, don't take it personally is what I'm saying. I really love you. More than likely. Anyways. Second question. To kind of fit with the theme of the family, we're talking about the breakdown of the family with Dr. Tom Edwards today. To kind of fit with that, outside of like pointing your kids to Jesus, what's the most important thing that you do as a mom with your kids?
Man.
It could be most important thing to you, or you feel like the most important things that your kids need to receive from you? Outside of pointing them to Jesus, what would that be?
I mean, this is like, it feels like an easy answer, maybe a simple answer, but it's just like some kind of connection. And we talk about that in our training all the time, that it's like 15 minutes a day is one of the healthiest things that you can do, is like letting like connection and time one-on-one with your kids. And we talk about that in the context of hostings, obviously, but I have just seen the dividends of that in my own personal parenting with my kids. And, the challenge and the thing that I'm navigating is that it looks very different for each of my kids. Like, I am personally a very big Harry Potter fan. And I have indoctrinated my oldest to also be a Harry Potter fan. But it has been so fun because connection with her looks like we read the books together at night. And it's just such a win. And obviously we read and then sit and talk about other things. But I literally tried the other day opening up the first Harry Potter book with Judah. And he was like, heck no. Like, he has no desire to sit and read a book. And obviously reading with Judah is still a great thing to do and prioritize, but like, he's just so boy. He wants to go outside and kick a soccer ball and throw a football.
With Joel 24/7.
With Joel 24/7 and sometimes
there's one less kid that you have to spend time with.
Yeah. We'll just throw him out the window. He doesn't need any connection.
Yeah, now you can allocate towards the 3.
That's right. But you know how it is. Like, every kid is so different. And I'm still figuring out, like, our little kids, what makes them tick and what they want to connect over. But that was a huge shift for me, even when I first started volunteering with MVM and working for MVM, and it's trickled down into my parenting. And I'm definitely not an expert on it. And I would very honestly say that I fail at this pretty often. But my goal is I really want to be a good connector to my kids and like parent from that place first. Yep. And then everything else comes from it.
That is a good answer. And it's probably good that you're teaching the trauma one, because that's what you talk about.
Yeah, I mean, it is something we talk about, but
that training. Mm-hmm. And it was good stuff. Well, we've got a 2-part series coming up with Dr. Tom Edwards, where the first one he's going to be talking about the breakdown of the family. The second one focusing on the solution to that. In this ministry, where we're working with families where they're under attack, and you feel the weight of that family hurting.
Yep.
What is the weight that you feel the most as you see the enemy attacking? And at times, it feels as if the enemy's winning. What is the heaviest thing in that as you've played out this role as a supervisor within the ministry?
Wow, this feels like a podcast episode in and of itself. We talk all the time about how like family stability and family health is oftentimes not linear. And that feels really heavy to me because, either for me personally, my church personally, or big picture, like as we're helping other churches walk out long-term relationships with families, like we want to see forward progress. Like we want to see, not even for our own sake, but for the sake of the families that we're serving, like we want to see them taking healthy steps towards stability or towards Jesus or whatever that is. And oftentimes it is the work of 3 steps forward and 10 steps back.
Yep.
And that can feel really heavy a lot of times. And, a lot of our morning today was with a mom that we served a long time ago. And we're back in some really stuck spots, and that can feel heavy, and it feels heavy watching other volunteers really wrestle through that. But I was reminded this weekend, and I was reminding a volunteer this morning, that we see throughout the entirety of Scripture that God has the long game in mind.
Yep.
And we are so short-sighted in that. Not just like personally, but even in this ministry. It's really easy to get stuck on the short-term things and remember that God was faithful to Israel with all of their chaos for thousands of years, and he had the long-term vision in mind. And
that's good.
I want to be like that.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, this is cliche, and we've said it probably a million times on the podcast to some degree, and I'm not on the front lines like you are now. I'm far more removed within the role that I have now. But it really is sad to think about how many families out there are alone.
Yep.
And just wrestling through life.
Yep.
Isolated.
Yep.
And it's really sad to think about. And I think you'll hear from Tom that's a key strategy that the enemy had taken on to try to destroy families, is to get them isolated. Again, we talked about this on a previous podcast. There was one thing at the creation count that was not good, and that was man was alone.
Yeah.
And, thus comes Eve.
Yeah.
And then since that time, the enemy's been attacking the family, and he wants to see it broken down. And so I think it's important for us to talk about the issue at hand, the reality of the breakdown of the family, and not just how it impacts that family, but society, culture as a whole. And Tom's going to shed light on this in a way that I think is going to be, there'll be a burden that comes with it, but it'll be envisioning, seeing that there is a solution to this problem. And again, it's the bride of Christ. It's leaning upon the bride of Christ in many different ways. So anyways, excited for you guys to hear from Dr. Tom Edwards, not just this podcast, but the next one. So stay with us.
All right, well, welcome back. We have our guest today, Dr. Tom Edwards, and we're super excited to talk to him about families, and we're kind of doing a two-part interview with you, so people will get to hear you 2 weeks in a row.
Yes.
But today we're talking a little bit more about the problem that families are facing and the history of how we got into such a problematic spot, and then next time we talk, we'll be talking about the solution, and the church is the solution.
Yes.
But because we really like to laugh, we have to ask you two things first.
Okay. All right.
One, what is your favorite food to eat?
Where is it?
What is your very favorite food to eat?
My favorite food to eat is
What's your death row meal?
chicken wings.
Chicken wings. A specific sauce or restaurant you like those from?
There's a spot in the hood called Fisher's Fish and Chicken.
Okay.
They make their wings with a seasoning that's being called by some in the hood crack seasoning.
I love it.
Because once you dust it on there, it feels so addictive, like it's crack cocaine.
Yeah.
So Fisher's is by and far, and when you
It's
buy
like a
them,
dry rub that's on the wings,
it's
actual
a
sauce?
after fried seasoning.
Okay.
So when you purchase, like we buy it for church sometimes, a container of 100,
Okay.
and they cover it with foil and poke holes in it. And so I don't think I've ever gotten home or to church with 100 wings, because you can smell the wings. And so the Fisher's wings are addictive.
Okay.
And they're tasty, and they're completely unhealthy. And I don't think they changed the oil. Well, I shouldn't say that. But it doesn't matter. The wings are just awesome.
We're going anyways.
Do you make
told
your
us.
own wings too?
Yes. I do an oven fry. I do grilling. I do air frying. I went to Fresh Market, and purchased some wings yesterday. Keep them in stock in my freezer. So it's now spring, and so I'll be barbecuing my wings.
So you're our new favorite wing location in town.
I don't eat pork. And so for me, wings replace ribs.
Yeah.
Because I can't do pork. And so you have a bone, you have like a mini rib, that's a wing.
It is.
And there's no such thing as boneless wings.
Yeah.
That's a chicken nugget.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, so.
Okay.
It's to help adults feel better that they're eating a chicken nugget.
Yes. An adult nugget.
Yeah.
Boneless wing.
It's more challenging to eat.
Yeah.
Boneless chicken.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. My second question is, what is the thing in your life right now that's making you laugh the most?
Laugh the most. Oh my goodness.
You have like TV show you really like. You like when a close friend falls down or shuts their hand in something?
I tell you, I'm really liking Star Trek, the newer Star Trek.
It's funny.
Yes. Well, it's the way it's done with Anson Mount,
Okay.
Star Trek, Strange New Worlds.
Okay.
It's Star Trek done with various genres. And so one of the most funny episodes is the musical episode in which you have singing Klingons like a boy group. And I've rewound that over and over again when they throw it to the Klingons.
amazing.
It is so funny. And to see it go from through, so next year they're going to do one with the Muppets.
Okay.
So they're all going to be Muppet characters.
Wow.
And so
All these words just feel like they don't belong in the same sentence.
they
Muppets and
have
Klingons
really
and
stretched
singing.
out the genre bending part of Strange New Worlds, but you still have the serious through line. But
So interesting.
I'm a Trek fan. I'm not a Trekkie. I'm not a Trekker. I'm not one of those nerds that
Are those
dress
two
up.
different things, Trekkies and Trekkers?
They dress up in stuff and they do podcasts and stuff like that. I just admire the work because the first time I saw an African American in the future was Nichelle Nichols as Lieutenant Uhura. And she was cute as well. I'm a 7-year-old kid, and I'm thinking, wow, there are cute black people in the future. So, yeah,
That's amazing.
yes,
Well, I've learned a lot. We should just stop now.
yes.
No, we have some really serious stuff to talk
Yes,
to you about.
yes,
we
ma'am.
just
Yes,
we just
ma'am.
needed to hear a little bit of the funny side
Because
of Tom.
it will get heavy when I tell my story.
I know.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Well, let's start there. I mean, you're partnering with us in the Four Family Network, bringing a really critical voice to this space. Every time I talk to you, I literally cannot believe all of the things you're working on. And
It's called Old.
all right. Well, I'll let you know when I reach it. Hopefully, I'm as accomplished as you. But yeah, I would love to hear your story and some of how you got kind of passionate and excited about this family space.
Yes. Sometimes you don't know what you're in until you're in it. And so I became involved in this space because of a tragedy in high school. When I was a junior in high school, my best friend, Dwayne, was having trouble academically. We both had algebra 2 and trigonometry. And I am not an algebra type of person. Just because of some of the family dynamics that I had, I missed pre-algebra in middle school because my mom died when I was very young. And my father went through a breakdown. He was diagnosed as manic depressive. And because of that, I spent 100 days along with my brother outside of school. So a lot of the basics that you get in middle school in 6th and 7th grade math with integers and pre-algebra, I didn't get it. I went from being an honor student to being like a B, sometimes C student. And so by the time I got to high school, I couldn't really get trigonometry. It was not, algebra was easy, geometry was easy concept, but that class was hard. So I was pulling an F. But my father, being basically not very interested in our academics, did not give me any stress about it. And so there's no father influence of you're doing bad in school. All of my motivation was self-motivation.
Yeah.
I wanted to do well to get a scholarship, to get out of that impoverished farm environment. Dwayne came from an intact family. And so my family was intact because of an early death. Father, mother at home, and high achieving siblings. And so he felt a lot of internal pressure to do as well as his siblings. And long story short, he committed suicide.
So sad.
And what made a suicide so difficult for me was if I knew what I know today, I would have known the telltale signs. But in 1980, you didn't get that type of education in school. So the suicidal ideation, the euphoria before the event, all those things that I came to know when I became a suicide hotline volunteer. So that's how I became involved.
Wow.
His death was so traumatic to me, I didn't want it to happen to anybody else that I knew or didn't know. So I began to volunteer, and that led to me eventually becoming involved with juvenile psych as a milieu or a psych therapist, just on the front lines with that, eventually becoming a social worker. I remember the first time I felt like I was doing family ministry. It was at the Maumee Youth Center in Toledo, Ohio. We would have these pre-release meetings with families as part of families who could get a judge to get a child that was adjudicated delinquent You typically had to have influence or money to set these meetings up. So a family from Cleveland had a son who was one of the most notorious auto thieves in the city.
Wow.
When I finally read his case file, because typically when I got a kid in my unit, I wasn't too concerned about the past, but more concerned about the stability in the future. But having to do the family piece, I read the case file, and this kid came from wealth. Father owned several car dealerships. Kid was tracking well in elementary school, but in middle school, he started stealing cars. And he didn't steal for money. He stole for attention. And he stole for his father's attention. And that came out in our family intervention session. I remember it so well. This kid, before that session, never smiled. I called him mini Roberto Duran. I mean, he just looked hard. He's this Puerto Rican kid. Every kid was afraid of him because he would knock a kid out. It's like little hands of stone. And he just had this snarl on his face continually. So about 2 hours into the session, snarl, father and mother, sisters trying to get to him. So finally we brought up, I said, it seems that you don't spend a lot of time with your son. And I saw his posture shift. Again, a very long story. At the end of the session, they're hugging, they're crying, they're apologizing. And he was so adept at stealing cars because he worked on his father's lot. So he would steal from dealerships and let his criminal friends take these cars because he just wanted to have a father's attention. And the gang that he ran around, the car stealing gang, became a pseudo fathering group for him. And that's when I got it, that I have maybe a knack for doing this.
Yeah.
And so in my mind, and maybe I'm just a little bit advanced, a little bit different, I never saw a difference in my vocational life and my church life. I saw what I did at work as ministry, and on the weekends I volunteered as a chaplain at that youth prison. And so to me, that's where I served God. I served God as a social worker, and then I served God on the weekends as an assistant chaplain to the chaplain in that prison. And that really gave me the opportunity to start working with families in a more detailed way. And that was 1994, fall of 1994, when I had that intervention with that young man and his family.
Yeah.
So a lot of things helped form it. It was the Wayne suicide, working suicide hotline, then going into juvenile psych, and God just ordering that path. Because my idea was to be a lawyer, a politician, anything but a social worker, and doing what I did. But it was just God just matriculating me in that pathway.
Yeah. So you saw, as you were working with maybe kids or adults who had suicide ideation, and then when you were working with the juvenile courts, just a strong link between what was going on in the home and with their family, and then some of these other issues that were coming out in their life.
And my family, and the dysfunction that my siblings had in their marriages. To me, it was all connected. And so having what I went through as a child, my mom dying when I was 5 years old, just gave me a lot of empathy and understanding. And for whatever reason, it's like Romans 8:28, all things work together for the good. A suicide is a very serious situation. And many families, when they are in that failing category, you have suicides, you have abuse, you have sometimes homicidal situations in those situations. And so I got exposed early at the dark side of family trauma. And it was so funny because when I would go back to my home church, they would always pair me with the most difficult families because of what I did professionally. So it all just...
You didn't get to see the bright side very often.
Not until later. And that's where you begin to work what I would call quote unquote normal families, because there's really no normalcy. There's evidence of sunshine. It's a song by a group called Maze, Frankie Beverly and Maze. Joy and Pain, one of my favorite songs. I used to DJ when I was younger.
Wow.
What
And
hasn't?
so
What
the-
haven't?
So the lyrics are joy and pain, sunshine and rain. And the song talks about how life is full of these moments where there's this great, wonderful, beautiful spring-like sunshiny day, but with the sunshine comes rain. And that's a lot attributed to because we live in a fallen world.
Yeah.
And understanding that, and that's where, and we're going to talk about this, I believe, later, where secular systems really don't get it.
Yeah.
They don't really understand sin and the fallen nature of mankind. It's not just id and ego and cognitive and emotive issues. There's a sin nature, and there's an enemy that's looking to destroy families and individuals. And if you don't go into this business with that understanding, then you're basically going into the battle of family preservation to restore families with only half your ammunition.
Yeah.
Was that something that you were cognizant of early on within
Oh
the-
yes.
Yeah.
Oh yes. 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 I come from a ministerial background. So my grandfather's Baptist preacher, paternal side, maternal side, Methodist preacher, was kidnapped in my teen years by a bunch of Pentecostals, and so we quickly blamed everything on the devil. If you have, like Dana Carvey, Satan, yes, Satan's ultimately behind
reference.
everything.
I also blame everything on the devil. So.
Yes. So technology issues, Satan.
Satan.
Yep.
Yes.
It's got a
I
stomach
agree.
bug, Satan.
Yeah.
Satan. Yes.
What were some of the other experiences you had after those then?
After those, I became, well, I don't know why, but I wanted to be a church consultant, and the seminary that I went to didn't have a church consultancy degree program, which most churches don't. And so I went into Christian education and formation. And so from there, once I graduated from seminary as a late bloomer at 39, in 2003. I started in 1998 because I did 4 years at University of Florida, then I did 6 years in seminary. I became the director of Christian education and formation for a rather large, you can call it a mini mega church. And I got to see a lot of dysfunction or a lack of formative behaviors in families in a strong Christian environment. When I grew up, families attended church together. And so there was no such thing as children's church at the time of sanctuary ministry. So we had, before
sat
church, we had
together.
Sunday school ahead of time. So kids went to Sunday school, and you had various boys and girls, or sometimes co-ed. The teens had their Sunday school class, the adults had classes, and so men and women had classes. And in that process of time, I got to really understand the full counsel of God sitting at church against my will, because I'm a little active as a child, moved a lot, but I began to understand the gospel. Now, we had robust children's ministry outside of that. By the time I came along into the Christian education field, you now, in the late 90s, early 2000s, children's church is full-fledged. So most churches of size have nursery school type of church, pre-elementary, then you have the elementary, middle school, high school ministries, and it takes place at the time of sanctuary ministry. And so I had a family say to me when I was revising our Christian education curriculum at one of the churches that I served as the Christian education director, I said, all the families, based on our new curriculum, are asked to spend an hour a week reviewing the lesson, previewing the lesson with their child before next week. Had this one family, very middle-class family, came to me and said to me, that's why we pay you. We pay you to do this with our children.
Yeah.
And then that really began to alarm me, because we had kids who came from very strong families who prayed with their kids, talked about spiritual things at home, lived out the gospel, did basic discipleship at home. Those kids were strong and resilient. And what you have in church are the kids, and my daughter's a PK who was forced into doing this type of stuff. And she's strong and resilient today because we didn't force it on her, but we lived the life in front of her. But that became a sore spot in my church. And I would try to suggest to the team, maybe we should shift paradigms. Are the things that we're doing actually good? Because we had a robust beyond Sunday morning ministry with young men and women, but the culture demanded, parents began to demand, I need to focus on the Word of God. I can't sit with a crying child. I can't sit with a kid who's needy. And so if I have my child in the sanctuary, I give them an iPad or a telephone or something to keep them busy. And when I was a kid, if someone gave me that, I may have met Jesus a lot later because I was forced to pay attention. And being forced to pay attention, I began to hear God speaking to my heart. And so when we talk about the historical narrative of my life of observation, I think that we try to do good things, but good things have bad outcomes many times because we think that we're doing the best. Now, I'm not saying that children's church can be is an issue, but what you find is, especially with young men, when you graduate from children's church, we're not spending enough time in adult church with other adults. Some teens begin to think that they've graduated from church. And then what you see correlation with young women who have that same experience, they come back to Christ typically in their mid-20s. Young men come back to Christ in their mid-30s.
Really?
And so all this data seems to say maybe we should reevaluate. And so that became an aha for me, but it was like, how do I change this? And so my mindset became, if I become a pastor, I'm going to reinstitute family church.
Yeah. So kind of in the church and outside of the church, you were starting to see the family as an answer. But what are some of the major problems that you see families facing over the last couple of decades as you've been in some type of family ministry or another? What are the issues that are coming up over and over again, and where are we heading with those?
I think the biggest issue is love and fidelity. And it may not sound like a big issue. And we go back to the agrarian days of our society, and farming days, when we were farmers, when we all lived and worked the land. Families basically worked together. They spent time together from sunrise to sunset. Kids went to school during school time, but after school, you're working together, you're bonding together, and spending those times of intimacy together. Eventually, as we went from an agrarian society to an industrial society, and factories, and now fathers are now not working the farm, but they're going away. And it was typically the father going away, and the mom became the big center of raising the heart and the hearth of the home. So now that love connection and that emotive connection is with mom, and it's the father after work. And if he did 12 hours in the factory, he may not be ready to come home and just bond with kids. And so, but then before TV and before radio, you got to spend some time. So you might as well spend time with your kids and not at the bar with your friends or at the tavern or the saloon. But over time, as society changes, and you now have women in the workforce because of necessity, because of World War II, because men are now in war and women are now in the factories. And now when you come back post-World War II, you have families, you have the option of having mom go back to the household and being a homemaker, or helping support the family's income. So it's time, it's money, all these things. And at some point, who gets squeezed? It's time with children. And when you add in poverty and other factors. And so I think there have been inadvertent shifts that we as society, we aren't proactive in our thinking. We allow society to change and things to come to us as innovations. But was it Einstein? The theory of relativity, every action is an equal and opposite reaction. Maybe it's not the theory of relativity, but it sounds good.
Your guess is good as
throw
mine.
Einstein out
You just
there.
said Einstein, so we were impressed.
But there's a cost to everything. And we didn't identify that. When I think about my own life, my mom worked, but she worked through home, and she involved us in her work on the family farm. She was always there. My father, when we worked with him, and we played with him to the level that he wanted to be played with. But over time, I saw my siblings begin to raise their children in a manner in which mom and dad are both working. There was no daycare when I was a kid. If I got sick or my brother got sick, we didn't go to a daycare. We went to a neighbor or to a relative who took care of us, didn't charge my parents, and then we always had that nurture. And so when you see society moving from grandparents staying at home to grandparents now going to a nursing home, those convalescent homes were for the wealthy. And now it becomes commonplace where now I can put my parent or put an aging relative here or put a child here and have someone else do what was normally ours. When I was doing my tenure in church as a Christian education director, I became very cognizant of one thing, and I say this even today. We complain as Christians that the government took prayer out of school. But I ask, who took prayer out of the home? And so I love the efforts to get prayer back in school and Bible study back in school, because I benefited from that until 1975. I had prayer in school and Bible study in school every Wednesday, from a Bible study teacher that came to our school until the Supreme Court said no more of this. They had said no more a long time ago, but Florida being very resistant, I got to have a Gideon
Florida's so
Bible
resistant.
every year. And I learned a lot that supplemented what I got at church and what I got at home. But we as families, we stopped praying with each other, and the data shows that over the last 25 years, there's been a decline in families praying at home, talking about spiritual things at home, spending time reading the Bible at home, spending quality time loving and affirming each other at home.
Yeah.
So love and fidelity becomes this big thing, and that's that Deuteronomy 6. We are told to read the scriptures to our kids, to write them on the doorposts of our homes as we go and as we come. But now we have outsourced that to school, to educate, to church, to form, so that I can, one, decompress after my day. And so now I need to spend time with my Merlot in the evening so that I can recalibrate myself so I can get back into the dog-eat-dog world.
Yeah.
But the dog-eat-dog also eats our kids.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of good stuff there, Tom. In a lot of ways, what I was hearing, there was a dilution of family and community.
Yes.
And it seems as if what you're saying is that the church and Christians started to, no pun intended, but to farm out the needs of that to others outside of themselves.
Yes.
Would you say that was a critical piece in kind of the initial significant breakdown of the family?
Yes.
And what were maybe some other factors that came into play?
One of the biggest historical factors that caused the church to farm out a lot of what it was traditionally called to do was the Great Depression. The Great Depression, late 1920s through the 1930s, was such a catastrophic event, not just in our country, but worldwide, when the stock market crashed. The economic system crashed. I can give you an anecdote from African Americans. So there have been two great migrations of African American citizens. One in the 19-teens, prior to World War I, that happened because of the boll weevil infestation in the South. So most African Americans up until the 19-teens and 1920s lived in the southern United States. But because of the boll weevil infestation, they began to move up north to northern cities. That initial move was absorbed by churches, because churches in the African American community always provided the welfare needs of the community. So if someone didn't have a job, needed to be educated, if kids needed to be kept while someone was trying to get work or employment, the church did all of that. That migration stressed out the resources of churches. But the second great migration during and after World War II, so the Great Depression, World War II, more African Americans leave the South, and this time that great migration was not because of a boll weevil or an agricultural infestation, but because northern factories ramping up and needing workers. Young white men are going to war. We need to have more population. Initially, African American men were not recruited or drafted at the same level, but eventually everybody became drafted. And so we need to fill factories in before the war and after the war. And so what you have is, along with the New Deal, rescuing families, because churches can't take care of all that capacity.
Yeah.
And so the Work Progress Administration and all the other New Deal things like AFD, Aid for Dependents. So Aid for Dependents is what later became AFDC, and which later became TANF, which is called welfare. And so AFD, in its original design, was designed for mothers who were widows or abandoned mothers who had dependent children who needed food and capital. But with AFD, there was a policy stipulation that stated an able-bodied man could not be in the home, because the mindset was if an able-bodied man is in the home, he can go out and forage for his family, for himself, and so that was the paradigm.
Yeah.
Over time, and when we go from the New Deal, that was basically trying to just keep the society together with FDR, to now Lyndon Johnson in the 1960s. John Kennedy's unfortunate successor because of Kennedy's assassination, from Texas, Southern, very conservative, but he also wanted to make a name for himself as president. Most presidents want to make a name for themselves. You have a library, you have a legacy. And unfortunately, his two legacies don't really put him in a good light. One, Vietnam War, to the expansion of welfare. The expansion of welfare under the Great Society was not necessarily a bad thing because you still had a lot of inequity and poverty in America, but the fatherhood penalty remained.
Yeah.
And so he was told, and others told him, if the fatherhood penalty remained with AFD, which became AFDC, then you're gonna see an erosion of family dynamics, especially in the Black community. And we saw that. And so if the fatherhood penalty was removed, and so what did the fatherhood penalty do? So imagine in the 1940s and 50s, you are a father and a husband, like my father was. And so my father came back from World War II. He was dishonorably discharged. Many African Americans were blue discharged, so which is less than honorable. So when you are dishonorably discharged, and my father earned that, he hit his drill sergeant, and they sent him home. But blue discharge is less than honorable. You don't get full government benefits. You don't qualify for the GI Bill and all these other things. And so a lot of African American men in the late 40s and 50s had starving families. I have all the documentation from my father's early life. And so fathers would just disappear on the day that the welfare workers would come to confirm whether the mother who had applied for welfare, that they don't have a husband or they were abandoned.
Correct,
yeah.
So for almost a 10-year period, you can see it, that fathers pretended to abandon their kids. But then when you couple that with the sexual revolution and the more lax cultural mores of the 1960s, Isley Brothers hit I'm a Music Guy. I feel like Ari Flasher from MSNBC, who's quoting Jay-Z, which I don't really understand Jay-Z or like Jay-Z's music. But I would quote old soul music. And so one of the theme songs of the 1960s sexual revolution in the African American community was the Isley Brothers, It's Your Thing. Do what you want to do. I can't tell you who to sock it to. It's this permissive, free love thing. So every part of the society had it. And so you had a group of individuals who were sexually in alignment more with biblical principles. Now, people did stuff. You had shotgun weddings, people that weren't always faithful and pure in white dresses at their weddings. But if you got someone pregnant, you followed through the accountability of being married.
Yeah.
But now it's this free love society, and you have poverty, and now you have a social welfare system that states, well, you can still get resources for your kids and you don't get married. So
In fact, you'll get more resources if there's not.
You went
disincentivized.
And so now you went from pretending to abandon your family to saying we have a covenant, so let's pretend that I'm loyal to you. And so we don't need a contract. We don't need a marriage certificate. You know, I'm your man and you're my girl. But when you don't have this, and you get tempted by someone else, you may fall into having another child by this one and that one and the other one because you no longer have the paradigm of fidelity and covenant.
Yeah.
And so I remember when in 1968, when I started 69, when I started elementary school, kindergarten in Florida, in the first integrated class, every child in the school, Black, white, Hispanic, all had a father in the household, except for one whose parents had passed away in an accident. And so almost every family had a junior or a second. That was 1969. By 1979, when some of my nieces and nephews came along, you start having kids now who are now kids in single parent households.
Yeah.
A lot of contributing factors come into play. And Satan plays the long game.
Yeah.
Seek, kill, and destroy. He doesn't wake up and say, let's do something today. He's thinking long term. How can I destroy the works of God? How can I destroy the apple of God's eye, humanity, and the human family? Yeah. And so what we as church and we as government, we react. And we react often late because things go well and we think short term. Most churches think about the next Sunday. They're not thinking strategically, how do I develop a family ministry and family missional activities? You don't think it that way. You're thinking about the next sermon, the next activity, the next choir rehearsal, the next big church event. And so we don't really look at scripture that tells us how to plan long term for our people and for our families.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I know I threw a lot out
No,
there.
it's a lot of good stuff there. Again, appreciate it. In that moment when you started to see that rapid decline in fathers being in the home. Was there a pushback from that in the church? Like, did the church recognize it, see it, and fight back, and they just weren't successful? Or did they just grow passive to it and just kind of let it be what it was?
I think there was just a sense of obliviousness. Many times you don't really understand that the house was on fire until it's too late.
Yeah.
And so the house was on fire. And so by the time you realize, so you had aggressive incarceration that started happening in the Black community in the 1980s, 3 strikes and you out, crack cocaine being sentenced higher than powder cocaine. So a lot more Black men being removed from the community. You're having, and so you look at all these contributing factors. So by the time you realize that something's wrong, how do you respond to it? And being a believer and a Christian in the church world, I never saw a response.
Yeah.
Not even, we had a response that was eradicated with the end of the civil rights movement. There's a consciousness that there was a level of need that needed to be addressed from a Christian paradigm, and Dr. King and those of the 1960s. What I saw his successors doing was resting on their laurels. That we've arrived. That we have arrived. We've gotten integration. We have a more level playing field, and church became the placebo. I love church. I love everything. I love the smell of church. I love the sound of church. I am a church kid, and so I don't need to take from this that I'm cutting down the church. But the church can be blind to issues, like Israel was often blind to spiritual attacks.
Yeah.
And so when it's too late, then now we have to react. But we're reacting 20 to 30 years behind the fact.
And reacting to the symptom sometimes. We're reacting, if compassionate, to the single mom instead of going all the way back to this root of the family being actually wholly healed.
Yes, but nature always abhors a vacuum. And so that welfare society that started with the New Deal began to expand because systems want to live. Systems want to live.
They grow, they need fed.
And so the public welfare system and children's services recognize the deficit. And so now you see more social workers going into the field that should be helping families, but maybe inadvertently disabling families. And they're doing it without a God paradigm.
Yeah.
And so now you've gotten so we complain about the social welfare system with welfare and the money given to single moms, but we don't really think about the compounded impact of a bureaucratic system trying to restore families when it's the church's job.
Yeah.
And I think the church became complacent with society doing its job. Now, what you saw as another reaction was the growth of Christian nonprofits and faith-based organizations, because they became believers understanding that there's a need. But these faith-based organizations don't have the same resources as the federal government. And churches aren't doing this in a very collaborative way.
Yeah.
And even the historical organizations that you look at, you look at the Salvation Army. That was a Salvation Army to supply food and salvation to the needy folks in London and in England, becoming now being known for ringing bells at Christmas time, or YMCA, that used to be the young men and the young women Christian organization, becoming less of that.
Yeah.
Because now, after founders die, organizations tend to drift unless they have strong institutional moorings.
Yeah.
And so Harvard University was started as a Presbyterian college for pastors in the United States. I would assume that Dr. Harvard, who created Harvard, would look at Harvard today and be shocked at what Harvard has become.
Yeah.
Because institutions become living, breathing organisms, and individuals, because of the lack of moorings and connections to the mandate, they drift unless we do stuff to make sure the next generation continues on. We can learn from the Jewish community in their failure and in their successes. In their failure, we can see that they went into captivity multiple times in Assyria, in Babylon, and then in AD 70, because they drifted from their moorings.
Yeah.
What kept them together in the diaspora was they retained their sense of community and moorings, and now they're successful to a certain extent.
Yeah, I want to ask a question along those lines. You use this analogy of a fire, and what we heard from your personal story or early on, that there was a strong sense of community.
Yes.
your parents, or you get sick, you can't go to school, your parents got to go to work. There was community that wrapped around you to be able to get through that mini crisis. So, and then there's this fire that is set ablaze with everything that you just talked about with, the war on poverty, et cetera, fatherlessness growing. At what point, and individualism started to ramp up, in America a lot.
Yes.
And that I'm sure was like adding gasoline to that fire.
Yes.
There's a lack of community. There's a dying sense of community that is growing within not just the church, but in culture. At what point did that really become prevalent, where it was adding that gasoline to that fire, where that community was really lost? There's just too much individualism.
You can see it in various times in various communities. You look at the Catholic community. I think it was lost in the 1940s and 50s. You look at the evangelical community. You look at it between the 1950s and 80s. But the Black community between the 1980s and the 2000s. Because once you get a sense of leaving your communal neighborhoods, if you look at Columbus and any urban area, where did the Catholic families start? Italian Village. Where were the strong Presbyterian and Lutheran churches in German Village? Where did those churches drift to? They began to drift outside the city. When you drift outside the city and move into suburban neighborhoods, you're no longer cloistered in your communal neighborhoods. And so you can look at it in any society in the world. When you lose community cohesion, it's like I'm a Black church expert, ecclesiologist for African American churches, but also I look at the broader church community. African American churches used to be neighborhood churches, and everyone either belonged to a church or pretended that they did belong to a church, because eventually you need to be buried by someone, and you want to have a church funeral.
That's right.
And so Black churches, in my childhood, I lived in a small rural area. If I was strong enough, and I had a pretty good arm, I played quarterback as a kid, I could throw a football and hit 3 churches. If I had a Dan Marino arm, I could hardly hit 5 churches. But they were all around. But when churches begin now to build bigger buildings and move away, you become divorced from these communities. And so now what you have in many suburban contexts, people drive to church.
Yeah. It's just a Sunday event.
It's a Sunday event. So when you used to walk to church as a family, or drive only a mile to church if you didn't want to walk a mile with your kids and get sweaty, or be in the snow, it was close. And so the church had a neighborhood presence.
Yeah.
Most people who live in these outposts where churches are now being dropped into, those people don't see that church as being part of their lives. And so I'm inviting you are strangers inviting me to come into this building that wasn't really built for me.
Yeah.
And you're not concerned about evangelizing or loving me until you have a special event. So I get you popping up on Easter saying, come to Easter service and we'll give you an A. Come to Easter service and you can drink a beer because we're the cool church. I'm sorry, I said too much. But anyway, we have lost a sense of community by modernization. What we thought was good. Now, if a church goes into another community, say move into the suburbs, now God planted us here. So let's make it our due diligence to adopt this community and let this community know, even if you're not a believer, even if you're not a Protestant, we're here for you. Like the church did by just nature before. Now you have to work harder. And working harder is hard without human resources and financial resources, because now if I'm the pastor, I have to make sure that I get you a message on Sunday, because to me, that's the main thing. And if I'm a worship leader, I got to sing to you on Sunday morning because that's the main thing. We don't think about all these components. That's why parachurch ministry and programs are important, because they take up the gap when churches, now denominations don't do that, because many times, again, we're not forward thinking. And when we begin to do these things, you begin to say, it's like in the corporate world. Corporate worlds are very big on cutting waste that doesn't lend to profitability. So it doesn't hit the ROI. So in the mind of some Christian leaders, does family ministry have an ROI? Because it doesn't put butts in the seat, doesn't put pennies in the coffers. And so now you have to ask, does God want this? Regardless of the ROI, which is return on investment.
Yeah. So you kind of ran some of those dates up to 2000. What were some of the issues that added to the breakdown of the family since 2000 up till now? So like the past 2 decades or so.
Technology.
Yeah.
Technology is a big one. When I was a kid, there was 3 channels: ABC, 4: ABC, CBS, NBC, PBS. And maybe one independent channel that showed creature feature and horror movies and really cheesy stuff and roller derby. But eventually, when you saw Superstation, TBS, oh wow, I can put a satellite on my home and I can get TV broadcast into my home 24 hours a day. Cartoons were only on Saturday morning. And so you had to be good all week to watch a 5-hour block of cartoons. And after that, you were out and about running and playing.
Correct.
And so kids, now we've over-programmed ourselves with technology. So that's one part of it. Now, also time sensitivity. Parents and kids don't spend a lot of time together. And now with the sports industrial complex in elementary school, middle school, and high school, my kid's going to become the next Tiger Woods or the next Michael Jordan or the next Derek Jeter. And so now I got to have them in all these extracurricular activities after school. That became an issue. Also, Sunday is no longer sacred. In the old days, we had blue laws. You couldn't buy a drink on Sunday, and you couldn't do any other activity on Sunday other than go to church. Stores were closed on Sundays. The Catholic Church was so powerful in the Northeast that the Baltimore Colts and the New York Jets and others in the Northeast could not start their football games until 2 o'clock or 2:30 in the afternoon. Everything goes on Sunday now, to the extent that some churches do allow sports teams to come in and do activities on Sunday. So we have all these compounders, and you have the drugs, and you have the alcohol, and you have a lack of really emotive training. I think Christian formation in churches have suffered because now we only have so much time for God. And so now in modern society, I evaluate my church based on how long are they going to keep me in church. I was in this conversation with pastors at one of the large churches in the city. Coach McCarthy came to town to talk about Promise Keepers and the focus on developing strong young men. So before the conversation, pastors were bragging about how short their services were. So one pastor said, "Well, I've got my sermon down to 45 minutes." Another pastor said, "I got mine down to 30 minutes." And some said like 25, 20 minutes. And one pastor with his chest stuck out said, "I've gotten my sermon down to 7 minutes."
Wow.
We do 5 services.
Just a TED Talk.
I do 7 minutes. We have 7 minutes of worship, and then they're in and out in 15 minutes. We do offering, and they go, and then we're turning over the parking lot. Wow. And he said it with such a sense of pride. And I'm wondering how much Christian formation and Christ development can you do in 15 minutes in total with a 7-minute message? Because now you see Bible studies not happening in church, and small groups aren't happening. So you have all these conflicting issues. On one side, the church has become more constrained because the consumer is deciding church based upon preference, not on God's calling. You have society becoming more and more consumeristic because now kids are being targeted. For years, kids are being marketed to billions of dollars to become the next great consumers. Social media is toxic. And to see a small kid with an iPhone hurts my heart because now kids can get access to anything, including pornography, and you don't even need that. It's not just the pornography of bodies having sex. It's the pornography of gambling and hubris and drug addiction and unhealthy body image projections in social media. And it's just, we are killing ourselves. I'm not a tree hugger, but I think that we do a disservice to being stewards over this planet. The biggest disservice we do is stewardship over the human being.
Yeah.
We take the human for granted. We exploit the human, and we celebrate that exploitation as modernity.
Yeah. Well, I want to give a little shout out to, it's very impressive that you have done all of the research that you have. And it's not just research, it's your lived experience watching families in the church over time. But you also have done really good research and written about this.
Yes.
So you have a book that you've just finished?
Yes, just finished.
And what's that called?
It's called The Black Family. It's called Rise and Rebuild because Black families matter.
Yeah.
It's kind of playing on the concept of Black Lives Matter. And so
A slightly more godly take.
like slightly more godly take, and I'll explain why. So Rise and Rebuild comes from Nehemiah.
Yeah.
When Nehemiah saw the walls, when Nehemiah heard about the walls of Jerusalem being in disarray, he was convicted to do something about it. That's the conviction. I feel like Nehemiah. I see the walls of the family broken down, and I add it because Black families matter in that. In government policy and even in the application or the distribution of funds towards family preservation, Black families have been excluded. And so Black families matter to God, and Black families should matter to us. But Latino families matter. Appalachian families matter. Indigenous families matter. And so I want to inspire those in every community to look at where needs aren't being met, because those families, middle-class families matter. Wealthy families matter. This kid that I told you about, the kid that was stealing cars, his father was basically a millionaire. But his family did not matter to him as much as the money and buying and expanding his dealerships across Northeast Ohio. And so we have to have a mindset, and part of my calling, I say that I'm Black by design. And so I love an integrated, ethnic, diverse body of Christ. But I think God gives us, if I was German, I'll be thinking about what's happening in Germany.
Yeah.
And because I have a very blended genome, I think about what happens beyond just my little part of me that's ethnically Black. But I think that someone needs to look out for the Black family when sometimes even Black pastors and leaders aren't looking out or know how to look out for it.
Yeah.
So it's not an attack on, say, the broader white society or the broader society as a whole and saying, oh, you need to look out for the Black family. To Black pastors and leaders and policymakers, Black families should matter to us. Yeah. And because Sunday is great, but God's first institution on earth is marriage and family.
Yeah. Yeah, and I just appreciate the time and effort you've put into laying out this whole argument that really supports well what we're kind of saying anecdotally is that, man, we have to go all the way back to God's original design for the family if we're going to really heal some of these issues that we're kind of just trying to slap a Band-Aid on or deal with the symptoms of. And so I think my last question, and then I kind of want to leave this conversation in the uncomfortable hopelessness that we've reached.
Uncomfortable hope. I like that term.
And then, because then we're going to come back and talk about the hope that is in Jesus and his body.
Yes.
But the last question I want to ask is, what are some of the attempts to fix that the government or the church are currently trying to do that aren't really fixing it?
TANF doesn't work.
And again, explain just for those that may feel that maybe a little bit
so TANF,
unaware of what that means.
So I mentioned several. I'm an acronym guy. I create acronyms and I try to remember acronyms. So AFD was Aid for Dependents, part of the New Deal. AFDC became the expansion of AFD under Lyndon Johnson and the Great Society, Aid for Families and Dependent Children. During the 1980s, Ronald Reagan, our president, began part of his campaign to change society by pointing out the welfare mom, this woman who has multiple kids and getting multiple welfare checks and taking advantage of the system. Now, I would say that was the exception. That was not the rule, but it creates good theater and good politics because it strikes a chord with conservatives. It's like, we have these irresponsible individuals, and it's not just Black moms, it's also white moms and other moms. But you have women who have been basically abused and neglected and trying to do the best that they can. And yes, every now and then you have someone who's taking advantage of the system. That evolved into the Clinton administration with a shift. When Bill Clinton became president, he made welfare reform a signature one of his policies. Along with Newt Gingrich and the Republican Congress, they passed in 1997-98, which was the Welfare Reform Act that became later AFDC went away and they called it TANF, Temporary Aid for Needy Families. So good. That's a nice from AFDC now TANF.
Yep.
What TANF did was direct welfare dollars stopped going to single moms. But now the government, in its wisdom, decided we're going to give these funds to nonprofit organizations who will empower these needful families so that they will come out of poverty. And so the money went from direct to moms because now you got welfare to work. So if you want to receive money, you have to get a job. So that work incentive is really good because people should work. It's part of how God designed us. But now you have organizations, many of them who are historical and some that are very new, and innovative, that are now receiving welfare funds. And it becomes now another government dole. And so organizations get used to this. Now,
They need it.
when you get TANF, you can't talk about Jesus.
Yeah.
And so there's a constraint on you that we want you to do all these social service initiatives, but you can't do them in a proselytizing way or a way that expresses Christian paradigms.
And not addressing the spiritual need that is behind.
Yes, and so I talk about TANF because I've experienced with TANF. In 2016, I was asked to lead a TANF-led initiative in one of our local suburbs called Restore Whitehall. And initially I said, no, I don't want to write this grant. I don't want to do this. I've worked in the government. It's hard, and I didn't really understand how I could make a difference. But after a year of study and writing a grant, we came up with a really good process in the city of Whitehall. We were given TANF funds, almost $2.25 million for a 3-year pilot program. And we did great things. We could have did better things if we didn't have one arm tied behind our back.
Yeah.
Yep.
And the problem with TANF was they wanted monthly progress.
Yep.
And it's unrealistic because the problems have happened historically.
Correct.
And so to get my next welfare check, my next TANF outlay, I have to give data that really doesn't support any transformation.
And I'm sure that caused I'm sure it incentivized you to maybe do a little bit of mission drift, like getting off focus of what you were called to do so that you could hit the numbers that TANF was looking for.
So we're giving incentives to families to do things to get them to come into a program that don't really move the needle of family preservation. But now, if I'm doing a scholarship for your kid to get tutoring, which is needed, it's not the main thing. I can't work on your relationships. I can't work on your love and fidelity issues. Yep. And so we had families showing up for these other perks that we needed to keep funding coming to us. And I lived in constant stress and anxiety as a leader of a TANF-funded organization.
Yeah.
Because I knew, one, I need to keep my staff employed and deal with that. And I have to report to the government these reports. And I'm thinking at some day this is all going to go away. And when it went away, I didn't like it, but then it was relief.
Yeah.
Because I don't feel that stress of having to not ethically do, even though they lauded the program. The program was lauded. We did the things that we were supposed to do. And we had great success. I knew we could have had greater success if we could have did more.
Yeah.
And so I think TANF is a good idea, but the way that it's administered, we just, as a society, have this disconnect with bureaucracy in the church world.
Yeah.
And there should be a healthy fear of some of us in the church world because some of us don't have ethics. And some of us will proselytize and not do services and programs, and we'll do a Bible study and think that's all that the family needs, and nothing against Bible study, but we don't have service professionals in many cases. And so the government should be wary.
Yeah.
But you shouldn't throw out the entire baby Jesus with the bathwater of someone not doing ethical things or doing proper programming with service professionals.
Yeah.
And as nonprofits, you have to be careful and cautious to take funding because oftentimes there then is the bridle that's thrown in your mouth, and the ones holding the reins is the government, not you and what Jesus is calling you to do. And it's precarious waters that you can go into when you do that.
And quickly, children's services. Children's services is a good program, and all those programs that are designed to help families. But many times, if they're being ran and facilitated by individuals who really don't have the heart of compassion, if it's just a job, and if they don't, and I'm biased towards Christ, if they are not really formed by Christ, they may be doing things that may appear to be good, but in the ultimate end, a disservice. And my last one is the penal system. We have the largest prison population in the world, and it's not designed for rehabilitation.
Yeah.
It's designed for sometimes for policy and political reasons. In many cases, like in Ohio, if you look at the maps of where our prisons are, they're in communities that have lost industrial centers. And so you look at you see in my former city of Mansfield, you got 4 prisons in Mansfield. And if you pull those 4 prisons out, you're looking at unemploying almost 500 individuals who depend on that prison population to be there. And so we as a society are very lax about making changes. And between TANF, between prison, between just a lack of communication when it comes to children's services, and the church not knowing how to properly navigate. Fortunately, we have agencies, nonprofits like CCV that are working on policy and addressing issues like that. But still, the conversation needs to be broader and larger, because having one person working in policy for the state, it's good to have one.
Yeah.
But we probably need about 5 or 6 policy people working on all the nuances, because typically we work on the bigger ones and not the smaller ones. And so it's a lot to go through. And so,
Well, and I think we need a collaborative effort that lends towards people having a voice who have some lived experience too. We're not just doing talking points for the next news cycle. Like you're not here just saying things to make you sound smart about how the welfare system's not working.
Yes.
You have lived through and walked alongside people in a really practical way, which gives you the ability to voice these things because you're not just talking about it, you're walking alongside of it.
Yes.
And I think that matters a lot, because sometimes people get on these high horses saying this policy is bad or wrong, and they aren't actually that aware of how it's impacting families and haven't truly walked a mile in their shoes. And so I think it gives you a critical voice here to be able to speak up for those things, and we have to be really good at listening to each other to really affect some change.
I was a child who grew up on food stamps in abject poverty. I live a upper middle class lifestyle now. I have a PhD. My wife has an MBA. We do well, but I'm still anchored in the memory of being ashamed to have to take a food stamp into a store and the abuse and wanting to be off of it, and going through the recertification process of having to go and sit in front of a caseworker who would basically dehumanize you, and watching my father be dehumanized to justify getting a couple of $100s a month to feed his family. And so there's a lot that goes into this system, and so I've lived it. I've eaten Salvation Army food, government cheese, the whole 9. And I've seen my sisters go through and receive welfare for having children out of wedlock, and that would not have happened if my mom was alive. Yeah. And so I've earned these stripes, and so I speak from experience, but I also speak with compassion. And I don't want to demonize the government. I think government is necessary. I think it's God instituted, but we cannot, as you said, we can't work in isolation. We need to collaborate. And if we can get government to collaborate, and I think our present governor, Governor DeWine, has done a really good job of bringing a Christian paradigm to the state. And if we can maintain that, and even our mayor, I've seen Mayor Gettner in Columbus working and being at a For Columbus meeting, which I thought I would never see. So when you can see the Democratic Party and the Republican Party are 2 dominant parties, giving the church an ear. And if the church takes the proper posture and advantage of the governor's ear and our mayor's ear, I think that we can work more collaboratively to the betterment of families.
Yeah. Well, like I said, we're going to stay in kind of this a little bit hopeless space because we've laid out the problem, and you did a phenomenal job laying it out. And if people can't tell, the spoiler alert is collaboration in the church. And
collaboration in the church.
It's the family. It's original sin. It's all of that.
Yes.
And it's a complex problem, and it is going to take the Lord. So We like to say at the end of each podcast, and since we're technically ending, even though we're going to talk to you some more, we like to say tomorrow's the next day.
Tomorrow is the next day.
Yep.
Yes.